Welcome to the Lone Star Keto Podcast. I'm your host, Amber. My vision for this podcast is to showcase experts in the keto carnivore community, as well as those who have compelling stories that inspire and give others hope. My wish is that no one has to suffer like I did. If you find value in this podcast, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification button. And as always, feel free to share. Thank you so much for your support. Hi, I'm Amber, and welcome to the Lone Star Keto Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Stephanie Rimka. She is a chiropractor out of Atlanta. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, Amber. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to pick your brain. But first of all, let's kind of get some background info on you. I want to hear a little bit about your health journey and also your professional journey. Like, how did you end up as a chiropractor, and what are you doing now?
Well, that's a great question. And it's interesting, I never like to tell the story where really everything is in the storytelling. The brain loves stories. And I usually sit around and go, why does anybody care? Right? Because as a clinician, when you're seeing patients, I don't ever tell them about me. I just sit and listen and receive and help. Right. So when I get interviewed, I'm like, oh, my story. Well, my health story, my journey actually is just intimately interconnected, intertwined with why I do what I do and how I came to be in the holistic field versus the traditional Western medical field. So I always wanted to be a doctor. That was pretty much, you would ask me at 3 years old, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a doctor. And so it was just something I always knew I wanted to help. And I was kind of debating between animals and people because I liked animals a whole lot more. I thought, that's a smarter thing, what I saw as a child. And I actually was really dealing with the decision. I knew the MD would give me more respect. Like everybody likes them. They're, we have a big white coat syndrome. Like I could be the god, right?
Yep.
And I would finally, I grew up incredibly poor, often welfare my whole life with a father in prison and a mom working, 3 side hustle jobs trying to feed 4 children. Okay. So just give you an idea. So that was this dream of like, I will get to college, I will become a physician, and I will save the family. Okay. Just so you give an idea. So I wanted to really be a vet though, but I really couldn't handle animals dying. So it made me cry too much. So I said, well,
me too.
And I was like, yeah, people are fine. So there was a big, like, in college where I ended up getting really sick. So like a lot of people that go to college, I was really smart, I did really great, all these scholarships. So I was on that pre-med track, doing really, really well, 4.0 student in the, pre-med in the best biology school in the state of Michigan. No problems, this was not a big deal. But going off to college and learning some things, I also was playing college sports. I also walked on the soccer team as well. And I became a vegetarian. And I didn't think about it at the time, but it's taken many, many years to make this correlation. And it's important. I became a vegetarian. And by my sophomore year, I had gained 50, 60 pounds. I was incredibly tired. My hair was falling out. I couldn't think anymore. I remember my boyfriend came in at the time into my room, and I had texted, or not texted, I remember I called him or whatever. Yeah, look at that text. I wasn't texting 25 years ago. Told him to come bring me some food from the Keller so you could buy some food, because I had slept all the way through and missed dinner because I just couldn't get out of bed, sometimes 18 hours a day. I was still trying to work out at this time because I'm still trying to do what you're told to do, to like what's happening to my body, what's happening. And he walked in, and I remember I was doing a chemistry thing, it's not a problem. And I couldn't remember what was 5 times 5 or something like that, a very simple multiplication moment. And he looked, and I had to use my calculator, and I just looked at him, which probably looked like sheer terror. And I started crying. And it was just, and he was like, and I was very smart. This is what I counted on. I had a photographic memory. I mean, this was just this is what I relied on, and it was gone. not to mention the weight and the fatigue. So I started like this journey of going to doctor after doctor in the health center. And it was months and months and months of lab tests and on, and even had to drop a class where I was like, I can't do my full load. And I was on a full scholarship, and you can't really drop and have your grades change, or you'll lose money. So I was really, really, really struggling. And it was actually a girlfriend of mine who said to me on the phone, have they checked your thyroid? And I was like, I don't know. They check things all the time. She's like, I have a thyroid problem. And this sounds exactly like what I went through. And I'm on medication a few years ago. I'm like, okay, so let me see. So I said, I had to go say, can you check that? And sure enough, they're like, oh, okay. So they said, yeah, I'm going to take this medication. I was 19 years old, mind you. And I'm by myself in college trying to navigate all this. They go, okay, so yeah, that's what it is. I remember the statement. You have to take this the rest of your life. It's going to be 3 times as hard for you to lose weight as everybody else now. And that's where it is. This is how it is. It's an autoimmune thing. I was like, that don't make any sense. I'm like, up until a little while ago, I was like 7%. I was crazy body fat, 7 to 12%. I mean, I would test it like I was so lean, so incredibly athletic, so muscular. I'm 5'11". I was roughly like 120 pounds, very, very lean, very, very strong, very, very athletic. Well, the year before, in a soccer game, actually, so it does relate to the vegan thing, kind of just building its way up. I ended up in an emergency room after a soccer game with a concussion and 2 broken ribs. And, I don't remember much, but I remember there was concussion and like, I had some broken ribs. I finished the season playing like this. Well, I would continue to work out as I'm gaining this weight and getting worse and worse. And eventually my leg went totally numb during a run, and I had to drag myself back in as well. So it's all happening at the same time with the thyroid thing, right? My body's just, bones are breaking. I'm having neurological impairment on my leg. I can't feel it. I can't move it. I'm screaming, crying in pain, terrified I might not walk, right? X-rays pop up. They're like, oh, you broke your back. I was like, what? So L5 was broken as well. A disc was it. So I'm basically just falling apart. They think I broke it in the game. Maybe they're like, maybe this is what happened. But I'm losing bone density, right? I'm breaking my bones at this point. Thyroid is crashing, being devastated. So I go on this medication, still not putting anything together that it was because I went vegan so hardcore as many people do in college, right? And that freshman 15 phase, mine was like 50 pounds. Well, the hormone did help, right? I instantly was like, oh, wow. I was on Synthroid, I remember. And I went on a strong journey to kind of figure this out of what to do. And over that year of diving into weightlifting books and other things, I was still committed to the vegetarian thing because everything told me that this is the healthier thing to do. Everything told me the soy, the tofurkey, that, like everything was the right way to go. Like, so I was eating soy and gluten primarily as the basis of my diet because that's what all the soy vegan stuff is, right? Long story short, through that, I kind of had this like crisis of, why do I really want to be a doctor? Because how I've been being treated in this whole process has not been inspiring, has not been hopeful. If I did what they said, where I just kind of laid down and died, it was very depressing. And I was like, I'm not doing that. You won't tell me I won't run again. You won't tell me I'm not going to play sports again. You won't tell me that I'm going to be fat for the rest of my life. I'm taking it back somehow. So I just started like diving into a whole bunch of stuff. And I started figuring things out and looking into supplementation and nutraceuticals and all this stuff. And again, I'm just 19, 20, 21. Well, through all of that, this one moment with this physician was just very, I don't know, it kind of like, in a way, if I didn't have so much strong FU energy in my system as a teenager, I could have been broken in that moment. Like, you will never play competitive sports again. You're lucky you're going to walk again. And if you push it, you're not going to. It was like I was in traction for a long time, and I kept going out and pushing it and hurting myself again. And I kept doing it like, ooh. And finally, it was that moment of that despair of like, I just remember looking at my mom going, yeah, get me out of here and take me to Keith. Keith was my chiropractor. I started getting adjusted at 16 due to a soccer injury and my back hurting, and then giving me drugs like muscle relaxants. My mom took me to the place. They gave me some drugs, and I slept for like 24 hours. I missed school and I missed a game. I was like, what just happened? Like, and I was like, I don't like that feeling. That can't be the way to go. And my best friend said, why don't you go see my brother? And I said, why? She goes, he's a chiropractor. I'm like, what's that? And she's like, they'll help you back. And I was like, okay. I told my mom, and she had been, so she took me. And it was one of the few moments in my life I had good health insurance because she was married to a cop. So we had insurance, which afforded me the ability to pay a $6 copay. Because I remember this. It was like, my mom was like, you can go as much as you want. I was like, really? So I would go 3 times a week, and Keith would work on me, and I would get adjusted before games, after games. He taught me about vitalism. He pounded into me just visit after visit about why I shouldn't take Tylenol, why I need sleep, why I shouldn't take a drug, why I should stop drinking Coca-Cola, why I should stop going to Burger King, right? And like a teenager, I was like, okay, whatever. Because at 16, 17, 18, you can get away with anything, right? And still be just a beast. Well, I finally, with that moment of terror of I don't want to be in a wheelchair, he said, will you listen? I said, I will do anything you say. I got it. So looking at that whole situation and being surrounded with what he did to my system, there was this aha. I said, I don't know if I really want to be a physician because I think I'm being driven by my ego. I think I just want the title and the respect and the money. And if that's what that is, I need to pause. So I took a year off after I graduated. I said, I'm going to use this year to make sure that what I really want is this. So most of my friends' dads were physicians, and many of them let me come in and do things and see things, go on rounds and stuff like that, and get an idea of what it would be like to be a physician. And Keith did the same thing with me, with what it would be like to be a chiropractor. And through that year, I also ended up working in a mental hospital for schizophrenics. I worked as a caseworker. So I was really trying to get into the healthcare system. And in that as well, I became once again disgusted with what I saw, just the rampant drug use of 0 people recovering, nobody getting better. We're just sprinkling drugs and other drugs to deal with the problems that those caused. And I just said, this can't be the solution. This can't be right. And there was just an aha moment in Keith's office where I said to him, and I was just working like my, job, still deciding, do I want to be a surgeon? Do I want to be a psychiatrist? What am I going to do? I was debating between orthopedic surgery and child psychiatry, which is really interesting when you find out what I really do. Well, I'm a chiropractor, orthopedic surgery. There's your orthopedics. That's board certified in neurofeedback, and I specialize in mental health issues.
Wow.
I actually blended, and I had no idea that's what I was going to do. I deal with the structure and function and brain function, and I specialize with autism, ADHD, learning disorders, suicide, depression. That's my patient base, right? I can't have made this up that at 1920, what I was debating and what I ended up becoming later on. It took 20 something years though. So it had this aha moment with him. And I said to him, here's the thing, Keith, because I would have constant, like a lot of back issues because of the injury and not getting tight enough abs really is my problem. And I said, here's the thing, Keith, when I'm coming in and I'm getting adjusted, because I would go when it hurt, I'd go long enough to have him get me out of pain. And then I would stop again. And then I would come back when it hurt. Yep. And then I would, right? Typical, like yo-yo dieting. It's yo-yo healthcare, right? Yo-yo chiropractic. Very, very common, right? And he always, welcome back. And I said, here's the thing. When I'm getting adjusted, it can't be just the pain. Why am I so much happier? Why is the world, why do I see things through like rose-colored glasses? Why am I optimistic? Why am I more vibrant? Why am I happier? Why can I just handle anything? Like what's that? I'm like, why does that happen? And then he suddenly explained the nervous system and the way information comes in and goes out, in a completely different way, and that he really was a doctor of the nervous system, of the brain and spinal cord, and affecting neurotransmitters. And he went through the whole kind of psychoneuroimmunology in a few minutes. And I just went, I said, wait a minute. I said, he goes, yeah. I go, are you saying the schizophrenics, these were my people, I go, they need to be adjusted? And he goes, yeah. I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. Where do I go? And he goes, Atlanta. I was 6 months later, I was gone, and I was enrolled in graduate school in Atlanta. And I went with the whole purpose of wanting to help the ignored, the mentally ill, right? The schizophrenics, the suicidal people, the bipolar, the drug addicts, and the prison population. That's who I wanted. That's why I went to school, to learn how to help. So very different reason. I never thought of myself as a back pain doctor, even though I started as a sports injury kind of person and it recovered me from sports injury. It's a very different thing. But over the thyroid problem and the lack of care I felt, and just seeing drugs being used, I was very disillusioned, and I got really in check with, and he said it very strongly, because Stephanie, if you do this, you have to be okay with not getting respect. You will not be respected. You will not be considered a real doctor. You will always be a salmon. I remember them very clearly. You will always be the salmon swimming upstream. If you're not okay with that, I want you to go to medical school. I want you to be the best damn physician that exists, because you'll understand chiropractic. You'll understand vitalistic health. You're going to be outstanding, but you need to be aware of it. And I was like, that's a good point. And I had to really get, am I strong enough to be disliked? Am I strong enough to be called a quack? Am I strong enough to be okay that I won't be accepted with the popular Western medical guidelines? And I said, yeah, I think I am.
Oh my God. Okay, my respect for you went from here to way up here.
I'm not the only one. I'm not, this is what we all, this, I'm not.
I mean, to me, that is, especially nowadays with the way things are going, for people to actually stand up for what they feel is right and is not being put out there, whether it's carnivore or keto or whatever. And for you, chiropractic, I mean, really, but I get it, because I've always been told, oh, the back crackers. And so it was always kind of like, not really doctors, like what you said. And I get that, because I was led to believe that too. Now, the difference is I actually knew some people who kind of had a situation like you, where it's way more than just adjusting your back. There's other things that involve. And so I definitely had more respect for that.
It's our own fault. It's our own fault. You think of us as back crackers, right? So that's an easy marketing tool, right? Pain, back, headache, injury, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't, but we always have to, I just wish those docs would also take the explanation a little bit further to say, ultimately, the only reason I'm touching your head or your spine is because it houses your nervous system. That's what we're doing. We aren't joint doctors. The only reason the joint matters is because, again, of the neurological information that a damaged joint is sending to your brain. So we're taught that in school. Okay. We're very much taught that. We're taught tons of nutrition, lots of digestive stuff, not very, very holistic. We get a very, very broad range of what to do. Just like we're taught tons of physical therapy certification, for ultrasound or muscle stim, and you can pick and choose how you want to be in practice. And so unlike, let's say, a dentist, which most of the time, most dentists are about the same. You might have some a little bit more holistic that'll be doing ozone therapy. You might have somebody that has a nice cone x-ray machine versus the standard cheap stuff. But in general, people know what a dentist looks like. A chiropractor, we've got over 4,000 registered, certified techniques available to us. Most schools teach 1 to 2. I went to this kind of school that teaches about 20. I know about 50. So you can go to one chiropractor who's going to use a machine on this bone only, left or right side, or they're going to use a little hand clicker, or another doctor is going to adjust like 8 segments. Another one's going to focus on your feet and put you in orthotics. Another one's going to do muscle stim and ultrasound, right? And depending on what state you're in and what philosophy they ascribe to, can look completely different. So it's super confusing for a consumer, and from like an advertising level, pain is a strong motivator to get people to get help, right? So people use that as the hook to get them in, but we've made ourselves look like back pain technicians when I'm really a doctor of the nervous system, and everyone is. And just some docs will depend on what they're into and how big they take it in practice. So I was into nutrition and supplementation driven by my own desire to heal myself, right? Already. I was interested in psychology. I was basically a psychology minor. So I was interested in the psyche, obsessed with the psyche. So I worked with schizophrenics, right? So I brought that to the table before I went to school. My family is littered with drug addicts and alcoholics and mental illnesses. So I'm driven by trying to figure out how to help them and not become that myself, right? So that's what I was already bringing to the table. There was a little bit of a plot twist while I was in school. So my nephew got diagnosed with autism. So my big sister, who I respect more than anybody, right? Her son. And so Stephanie, I need help. What to do? So then I became a lunatic and obsessive compulsive. I'm very driven. I'm an undermethylation kind of perfectionistic person. That's just some high performing driven, right? So I became obsessed with figuring out how to help him, what to do. And then I was trained by the team and arsenal of wicked autism recovery badasses that we found to work with him. And they loved those kind of physicians and doctors. They're not stingy or greedy with their information, and they want nothing but to have a holistic approach. So like, come on, young doc. I was still in school, and they just started training me and mentoring me, going over the labs, going over everything. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to take it. This is why we're changing this. So I learned being directly trained on him while I was still in school with who my sister was hiring. And then they became my doctors, my son doctor, right? So I was trained. And so it became very personal, right? And that led me eventually to becoming a neurofeedback therapist, because that was one of the interventions. So I did a lot of GAPS diets intervention. I had a study that we did GAPS diet with him, and neurofeedback. We did tons. And he had HIPAA therapy, so many stuff. But those were the 2 anchors that my sister said, out of everything we did, these were she saw the most potent, powerful effects when we did those and stacked them on top of each other. And it just was the moment of, well, then I've got to learn how to do this, because I can't just keep adjusting. I don't know any chiropractor with the genius inside of them that they can adjust the spine or do a tension move and I can make an autistic child talk again. But I know how to do it with nutrition, diet, healing the gut, and brain therapies, because I've done it over and over and over and over again, right? So I was starting to just refer people, and it was my best friend, Naomi, Keith's sister, who said to me, I was giving her an article. It was a Christmas time in my family. I said, I need you to get, her son has cerebral palsy and a seizure disorder. And I said, you need neurofeedback. He needs neurofeedback. We got to get it. And here, we need to find you somebody. I'm trying to find her somebody up in Detroit. And she just goes, I just wish you could do it on him. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. And she goes, well, can't you just learn it? And I went, oh, yeah, I guess I can. So then I started a 3-year-long journey. I've become board certified neurofeedback therapist through bcia.org. And then my primary practice is been neurofeedback brain therapies. I use light, sound, PEMF, so magnetism, neurofeedback, heart rate variability, anything I can do, and diets, ways of eating, supplements, healing the gut. So unfortunately, if you're going to deal with the brain and you're going to deal with autism, you kind of got to learn how everything works together. If you can't just do one thing, it doesn't work that way. We have a major trauma and all the parts that have to go together. that includes heavy metal detoxification, chelation. I mean, you name it, you've got to know at least the big umbrella picture. If you can't do it all, you better make sure you find the right clinicians to have an integrative approach. That's the least you can do as a clinician when a family comes into you with that child with tears telling you the last words they heard that kid said. That kind of thing over and over again. When you hear it, it sits with you. It stays with you for life. They become my own family. And you hit to a point like your own rage at what was done to that child and what was done to that family, what they were told, the disregard of that's just it. There's nothing you can do. And sometimes I think of the years wasted by the time they would get to my office, because like I'm your last hope person, because I'm not conventional. I'm all the weird stuff. No insurance pays for anything I do. You're going to have to pay cash for it all. They, this is fake woo-woo quackery to the American Medical Association. They just say, done and done. Doesn't matter what you do for that kid. Stick them on Risperidol and ship them off to a home one day. That's their solution, right? Speech therapy, little OT therapy, a few things they do have good purpose. But I'm looking at, we need to stop the damage. We need to try and recover it. You don't just blow up a house and say, well, screw it. I don't think we should try to rebuild it. No, you try to fix it and you try to rebuild it. Get the garbage out, lay a new foundation, and start construction again. So that's what I try to do with the human brain in a number of ways. So that's what kind of led me to where I am today.
That is an amazing journey. And I have so much respect for that. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm evolving as I go and figuring out, oh, I need to really get more here. I need to do more here. Nothing on the scale is what you have done, but I get where you're going with that. And I think it's amazing. And you help so many people, and you're getting to the root of what the issues are and building from here, like you said, laying a new foundation. I think that is in so many, just like you said, here's some drugs, here, go do this therapy over here, and you're dismissed. And I hear that all the time from people that I interview and that I've done for success stories through MeetRx, how they were basically told there is no hope. You're type 2 diabetes. You're going to always be on insulin. Nothing you can do, blah, blah, blah. Keep eating your carbs. What?
Almost
and we know.
They tell them that for ulcerative colitis, which I just come in, I'm like, that's not even that hard to fix, pumpkin. No. Like you've been on steroids, what, for 10 years? You can get somebody in remission 4 to 6 weeks. I've done it so many times. I'm like, I don't understand. And literally those patients will go back to the gastroenterologist, and the gastroenterologist will insult them. And then they come back to me and they go, I think I just need to never go to them again. I'm like, why? They go, because instead of saying, yay, how'd you do it? They said, she must be a quack. It's temporary. It's going to come back. I said, wow, isn't that awesome? Instead of saying, damn, I've been seeing you 15 years and I've done nothing. What the hell did she do in 4 weeks that makes the scope be clear? And I'm usually like, oh man, it's like 4 supplements. It's not rocket science. It's really not. Eliminate the poison that's ripping through their gut and give them things to heal it. You know what I mean? Now you got to tell them, like, pumpkin, you can't keep drinking bleach. You can't actually eat. You can't like chew glass and expect to not have ulcers again. Like, we do have to change what's going on for you, but so be it, right? Most of them are very happy to have a life that they're not on those meds and not have the symptoms. Anything. They say that for, they say it for every autoimmune disorder, which I think is a scam and a con to begin with, to even use that term. They tell them for everything. Oh, you just have, Hashimoto's, you just have lupus, you just have this, and you have to learn
deal with it,
manage it. Yeah.
Live with it. You just live with it. Yeah. Okay. Nothing you can do.
Right. Instead of saying, here's the thing, I don't know anything about that actually, of how to do that, but here's some resources you can check out. Because just like I would never give someone advice on mitral valve prolapse surgery because I don't know anything about it, I shut the hell up when it's not my lane. And I'm like, I don't know. But here's a cardiothoracic surgeon that seems decent in the area, that isn't a jerk. And why don't you go see what they have to say, and we can talk about it. And if I see how it fits in with your care plan, I don't know anything about that. So when I see physicians that don't know anything about nutrition, don't know anything about supplementation, don't know anything about anything holistic, don't know what ozone therapy is, don't know anything except what Big Pharma taught them, giving any advice to their patient to discourage them or from seeing anyone else doing anything else. I just tell patients to run as fast as you can,
I
because
agree.
that's not a
I
good
agree.
doctor.
I agree.
You know?
So speaking of staying in your own lane,
Yeah.
and it seems like the practice you're in does have a very wide
I know,
range.
horrible.
So where do you draw the line? Like what is your scope of practice, I guess? Like, what are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do as a chiropractor? Because there's got to be some kind of where, obviously,
I can't
not
give medical
prescriptions.
advice. Yeah, I don't give advice on drugs, right? Even though I have to deal with that. So my job is, I'm going to titrate people off medications. I do it all the time. You come in on 7 medications, you're going to leave my office on 1 to 2 or none. My schizophrenics typically often will need 1 to 2 for life, right? But they're not schizophrenic really anymore, right? We're on supplementation. I've changed their diet. We've done whatever. I do like lithium for them. They typically tend to need it. But ADHD, we're done with the meds. You know, anxiety, we're done with all of those things. So we titrate people, and you work with good therapists, and 1 or 2. You have to find the psychiatrist, you have to find the endocrinologist, you have to find the physician that you can work with together, and they understand neurofeedback. They understand as I optimize the brain and as I help. It's kind of like diabetes, right? So if somebody is a type 2 diabetic, and so they've got, and there's like obesity. So let's say we have 100 pounds and we have all this insulin resistance. And so they're taking injections of like 20 units of insulin after they eat or something. Well, if they come to me and I help them lose weight, and as they're losing weight, I've got them, the fat's going down. They've been lifting weight. So the muscle insulin resistance is going away too. Insulin resistance is going down. They cannot stay, if I have 100 pounds gone, they should not be using 20 units of insulin after they eat anymore, right? Because they can over medicate, right? Mm-hmm. The same happens with when we change the brain. So if they're on your Wellbutrin or Xanax or Valium, a benzodiazepine of some sort, anything like that, as I'm changing the brainwave patterns in the brain, normalizing it, and now the brain can actually sleep. The brain can actually throttle down into neutral. The brain isn't running on high beta overdrive anxiety anymore. If you keep sprinkling that drug onto that, now we're going to have side effects from the medication. So we have to start lowering things as the brain is normalizing. No different than you do for a metabolic issue. So I consult on thyroid hormones. I run labs. I run Dutch panels. I run genetic profiles. I do epigenetic coaching based upon a genetic panel. I look at methylation and how that relates to autism and other psychiatric things. I run the Genomind panel, which is a psychiatric panel. I'm allowed to run it. I'm one of, and the sad part is because psychiatrists don't do it. Why? This is the only reason, Amber, because I couldn't find enough physicians who were educated and trained that could work with me. And I got tired of having nobody to send my patients to get help. So I had to start doing it. I wasn't doing it because I'm like, ooh, I want to be running genetic panels to help, but I can run it. Why would they put you on an opioid if you could just run a panel to find out if that person's going to end up becoming an addict, if they have like 3 times as strong? You can just see if they have a genetic variant and oh no, never get that drug into your system. Or, oh, we can see what weed is going to do to you. So I'll run the panel. I'll tell the parents, here's the thing. When this kid gets to be teenage years, we cannot screw around with what weed is going to do. Let me explain. Oh, let's tell you what cigarettes are going to do to you. If you're like, you can run a genetic panel and find out ahead of time what somebody's blood levels are going to be. If that medication, they just write the script based on your body weight. And then some people have really bad reactions, right? And some people have no response. And so they literally just guess. Oh, bad response, lower. Oh, no response, keep increasing. Well, you can actually find out genetic variants ahead of time to say, oh, these people are going to get really high blood levels from that medication, or these people metabolize so much, it's like they never even take anything. So they aren't lying when they tell you they took all of those benzodiazepines and they still didn't go to sleep, or they took all that opioid and they're still in pain. But those people get marked as a drug addict, like they're faking. No, pumpkin, They're still in super pain because they just chew through it, and the genetics can tell you that. Why don't psychiatrists learn this?
That's
Why don't they do
fascinating.
anything, right? It's the only profession that's allowed to write scripts at will for anything they want with zero lab testing, zero imaging. They're allowed to treat an organ, the brain, without ever looking at it.
Wow.
Literally, they can just say whatever they want based upon what somebody says. Nobody else can do that. If an endocrinologist starts writing hormones without having a justification on a lab, what? If a neurosurgeon wants to operate without having a image, an MRI, a CT scan of what's happening, it's malpractice. So for some reason, that one profession has a total pass on really understanding brain function, brain structure, and they can write these powerful drug prescriptions without looking at anything. And again, the genetic testing is simply a probability. It doesn't always show you, but they're doing a really, really good job at being able to say, I can look at it and go, oh, this person is 3 times higher risk of PTSD than somebody else over here. Or, oh, this person, they must exercise. Exercise has 3 times the effect at managing their ADHD than this person. So you can have 10 different ADHD cases sitting in front of you. There's at least 12 subtypes of ADHD in the brain, by the way, and you don't treat them all the same. So if you don't take a picture, you don't do labs, how the heck do you know what you're doing? Oh, I guess it doesn't matter if all you do is prescribe methamphetamines to them, period, right? Some of those kids will respond really well to omega-3. Some, it'll do nothing. Some must exercise. That's why I'll tell parents that, and what people want to do when their kids' grades get bad or they get mouthy and they're bratty, take away their sports. So one of my favorite things is to sit and be able to go to, you know, a family and go, okay, let's go over your child and let's say, and people say, let me be real clear. I don't care what she does, never take her basketball away from her. She has 3 times the improvement in ADHD reduction of symptoms from hard exercise. And so when she graduates high school, it is a requirement that you maintain that. And usually those kind of girls are, I'm like, they should be boxing, kickboxing, MMA fighting, or something really aggressive, because that's going to help their focus and concentration, because that genetic panel shows me what it's doing to the BDNF in their brain. Other people don't get a sharp improvement from exercise. Doesn't seem to help their concentration and focus. It's good for other things. But see, that's how you can look at it ahead of time and just set them up like, oh, we see what that marker is. Their cortisol is going to go 3 times as higher as somebody else based upon this genetic trio. They need these supplements to help keep cortisol down. We really got to hit them hard with why breath work and meditation is critical for them to master, because it's just genetically programmed to have a super strong cortisol spike. They didn't ask for that. It just is what it is, right? You can look at all that. It's not rocket science, right? So why aren't they doing it? Because you would learn a lot of natural ways to get people not on drugs, by the way.
Yeah. And that's what you see across the board with everything. It's like a diabetic. Oh, well, you have to keep having all these carbs all through the day. And then those of us who are awake and who get it, we're like,
yeah.
But you're giving them exactly what's causing the problem. I'm not understanding. It makes no sense.
No,
I mean,
none of what they do makes sense.
No.
I mean, really, they've been saying eat a plant-based, high-carb diet, low animal fat, so high vegetable seed at that point. That's been the recommended guideline like 30 years now or something. It's been I was a kid, it was born in the 70s, 4 basic food group, right? It was a little bit different. Then when they came out with that pyramid, which I think was like the 80s, like early 80s or something like that, 70, 80, whatever, that switched it to plant-based. And that's because that was all, it's all grains. The basis is 7 to 11 or something servings of like rice.
That blows me away now.
You know, it's all manufactured industrial fake food stuff that no humans in the wild were eating, 15,000 years ago. Nobody. Nobody ate it. We cannot walk up to grass. We cannot walk up to wheat. We can't walk up to quinoa, spelt. We can't eat it. We can't do it. Okay. We've been given the most amazing, incredible photosynthesis based manufacturing plant on earth that can take grass and wheat and grains and do this amazing magic. It's called a ruminant animal, right? It does it for us.
Yes.
And we're like, oh man, because it has all these stomachs and all these other bugs that we don't have and we can't do it. That it's the bacteria in their body that does it. We don't have the ability to do what they can do. They take that cellulose and they turn it into fats. They're eating a ketogenic diet, which that, right? So It's amazing. You talk to the cow and the bison. I'm a bison fan. They're eating a ketogenic diet. They're not vegetarians. They're ketogenic. You know what I mean? Because the bacteria are turning all of that grass into fat. And, they're turning it into, I think medium chain triglycerides. I don't want to be wrong on that, but it's a bunch of small little fats they absorb. So it's a high fat diet. It's like 70, 80% fat, right? They turn that into that beautiful, thick, omega-3 rich, nutrient dense, everything a human needs,
Yeah.
And then we can easily digest that. Bim, bam, boom, no problem. And we assimilate and turn that into beautiful tissue without causing any damage to our guts like the plant would do. But that's not what most people realize or think or know.
No. Now, let me ask you this. Since you were vegan and you can answer this, I was never fully vegan or vegetarian for that matter. Okay, so you have a good background. Do you believe that there is somebody who can actually really benefit from the vegan diet, that it would be really healthy for them to do versus
long term?
Yes.
No.
Wow. Okay. So
you would have that would be such a bizarre genetic mutation of what it means to be human. I would almost suspect they're an alien creature.
Well, that is a possibility. So.
Yeah, right. So now, are there people who are vegan long-term right now doing well? Yes. But let's look at what they're taking, the supplementation. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at all the artificial additions that they're doing. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just if what you're eating needs to be turned into a math equation and you need like apps and everything, and it looks like a sheet like this and this essential, and we got to do this so the enzyme can do this and it can convert. I mean, that's not really what eating's supposed to be like. So they're all taking a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And see, that's where I kind of come from. Is like, if you have to supplement essential things in order for your diet to be healthy, that's a red flag for me. And I'm not talking about like, taking a magnesium or a D3 or something along to kind of boost, because right now, the way things are, our soil is depleted and a lot of us don't get out in the sun enough. So, you can see some of that. But something essential like B12, I mean, that's crazy. That's like super essential, and then to have to do something to supplement some of that, I'm just like, I just don't understand how you can consider that to be the human diet.
Right. I think it's it's an interesting thing. The more, because the vegan community, I was part of it. What are we? We're highly educated, highly liberal, progressive kind of people that are very sensitive usually. Remember I said I couldn't handle an animal dying, right? So we're super easy. We're compassionate and empathic, right? That's how we start. Super easy to hook us in emotionally and flip that brain, hijack it completely. Once that part of the brain that is purely emotional, that is a kind of even a life or death part of the brain gets flipped and flooded, it cuts off the prefrontal cortex, the part that's really there for some logical, rational decision making, looking at facts and examples. The limbic part of the brain doesn't do that. It's just emotion. Okay. Now the limbic system is lovely. You fall in love there too. And again, that's falling in love is a stupid thing to do. It's not rational or logical, right? But in general, this is the brain. This is the emotional center. This is your cortex, prefrontal cortex. This keeps everything all together, nicely integrated. You have a life or death moment, or you fall in love, or you get triggered by a vegan pamphlet that shows you cute bunny rabbits being tortured in a lab, which is what happened to me. And you flip your lid and you're flooded. And now the only thing making decisions is this highly emotional, panicked style brain. And that's how you get hooked, right? And so then you have a strong cognitive bias, and you're only going to look at things that are going to support what you're doing, which is what I did. And they're so good at feeding that information and propaganda to you that this is the ultimate disconnection from nature. So we're highly educated, urban dwelling city folk who've never grew up on a farm, never saw a chicken being killed in a backyard, or, I didn't see any of that. I didn't grow up camping. I didn't grow up hunting. And as I look at it now, as I've gotten into ancestral ways of living, primal ways, studying what we really are and how we came to be here, that is the ultimate disconnection to everything about nature. And the irony is most of us made that decision for spiritual, ethical kind of reasons, right? That was what was driving me. I thought it was making me a better human being. I thought it was increasing my compassion. I thought it was me not being a murderer, believing the propaganda, not understand that shows complete ignorance to understanding the cycle of life, and a complete disconnection of a universal intelligence and a spiritual power of energy being transmuted upon this earth. And we don't want to admit that that's where we are, but that's what it was. So I'm at a point now, again, never done it, but I look at I used to be that person that judged and thought hunters were disgusting. I thought they were mentally ill psychopaths. Something must be wrong with you if you could go out there and kill a deer. Right? Right? Now I'm like, oh man, I think I really have to learn how to do it. I really don't know how I'm going to do that. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm in the same boat with you.
But there's that moment of how dare I continue to assimilate the power of that body into me to keep me alive. That buffalo, that deer, that cow have saved my life. I was near death as a vegan after 12 years. After 5 years of doctor after PhD, after chiropractor, people I respected saying, you cannot keep doing this. You are going to be dead. And it was finally the one who said, I don't see you making it 3 more years. You're going to be riddled with cancer. At 30-ish or whatever, I was in full menopause.
Wow.
Thyroid had completely shut down at that point. Estrogen gone. Having all the hot flashes. They're like, you can't get pregnant. You're infertile now. I mean, the whole thing was, I couldn't think. And it was my friends who are older than me that said, it sounds like you're in menopause. Like you're way too, I really think you need to go, you need your labs done. And people had been telling me, great doctors that I deeply respected, but I was so tricked into thinking I was doing the right thing that I was willing to sacrifice my health for a cause. I didn't wear leather belts. I didn't wear leather shoes. I was hardcore.
Wow.
And there was a moment and I said, okay, I switched. And it was a great endocrinologist saying, I know you've done this. I know this is hard for you to understand. And he directed me towards some information. And I really dove into like the Weston A. Price Foundation. And I really dove into tribal cultures. And I had been on a mission trip in Brazil with a bunch of chiropractors. I've been on a few, but this one in Brazil, I was a student. And we got dropped off to different locations. So I was with 4 docs. And you sit there and it was at a church. And it looked really, really, really poor, like poverty, like, Americans don't understand. And once they find out you're there to give free healthcare, basically we're adjusting. They don't really know what it is, right? They line up. We're there 12 hours a day. We get like an hour for lunch. and you're adjusting 300,
Wow.
500 people a day. I mean, you just hit it. There's really no language issue because actually there's no sitting and talking. They can't really tell you much because I don't speak Portuguese. But oddly, in a few days there, I completely understood it. Spirit took over. The translators would come and they would say something. And I would say, well, she just said this. They go, yeah. I don't need you anymore. I completely could understand it in 3 days, that it's not a me, that's a spirit came in and did something, right? So when you do things for a higher purpose comes in and deals with it. Well, I was a vegan, right? All the doctors knew I was a vegan. And they're like, what are you going to do, right? Because a family in the church volunteers to take you to their house and to feed you. Okay. So I remember the first house we walk in and they're poor. I mean, dirt poor to the point we didn't know what to do. Like, I don't want to eat all their food. Are we taking their food for the week? Like, really, we were uncomfortable, right? Like,
Wow.
very small, like tough kind of neighborhoods. Literally, this one street was called the River of Death. When you walked by, and you're like, and by the way, the animals are just in the street, cows and bulls. You're like, are we eating one that was out there in the sewer? I mean, you just don't know, right? So I remember walking by and seeing like all this meat and all this stuff, and went to the bathroom to wash, and I kind of had this look in the mirror moment, and I just prayed, and I'm like, with tears starting to well up, like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? About my principles and my conviction. And I can fast. I've been water fasting. I can go 5 days without eating lunch. This is not a problem for me. But the level of not receiving the gift that they were giving, that love and appreciation. And I don't know, spirit, I don't really use the word God, as you notice, but kind of just showed me a thing right in the mirror, just showed it. And it was like the seeing the visual and saying, you don't judge the lion for eating the gazelle, right?
Exactly.
And I was like, it just was so obvious and so simple, and a wave of calm went over me. And I could see that this was a moment of not receiving this gift unto me that they had given would be the ultimate insult and my ultimate selfishness to some principle or ideal. That was ridiculous. So when I went back to the table, one of the guys said, he goes, no, the woman, Jody, actually, she goes, so anybody else here a vegetarian? And there were 3 of us who were, 1 of us who wasn't. And Skylar just said, well, I'm not today. And I said, me either. And I'm going to eat whatever they put on my plate. And after a while, we had to tell them not to tell us because ox hard and I'm like, I don't want to know. And so they thought it was really cute that the girl was like, oh, squeamish. And they just kept and I remember our translator said, and we were all tentative that first meal, like, I don't want to eat too much. What do we do? And he goes, she's really concerned, like, you're actually offending them. Like, is it not good or something? Because why aren't you eating? And we're like, oh, and we told them, like, well, we're nervous about how much. He's like, oh, no. Don't worry about that. It's like, it's offensive. And we're like, oh, okay. So like we're eating. Then we're eating. We're like, well, it's delicious, but we're just nervous about taking their food. And what they do is just keep filling your plate back up. You're like, oh my God. And so we had one guy, he was John. He was big Iowa kind of country farm boy, blonde hair, blue eyed. And they loved that there. Big boy, big John. Girls would like come there and just watch him all day because he was so pretty. This poor man had to eat so much food for the team because they just kept filling it. And we were like, John, you better, he's like, I can't say no. We're like, nope. At least the 2 women could be like, oh, I'm full. And they would laugh at us. I'm like, I can't eat any more food. Well, let me tell you, in those 10 days I was in Brazil, I ate so much meat. I never even drank alcohol. I started drinking beer there with the guys, and we'd be gone all day. We'd come back, and all the docs, my friends would go, oh man, I'm really worried about you. Like, how you doing? Like, how you handling it? Are you okay? And I was like, what are you talking about? How am I handling what? And they're like, well, like, I'm sure nothing's vegan. I said, oh, they're like, is your stomach upset? I'm like, I actually feel fabulous. I mean, then they saw me eating ice cream. I go, what? I mean, the nuns would make us ice cream homemade. I'm like, honey, I ate ox heart today. Don't think I'm not having the ice cream now. I mean, it's done. I'm not vegan this week. I was in no pain, had such strong energy. The same thing happened when I had to go on a mission trip in Mexico. You have to eat all this stuff. So I had these moments of like, I still was like refusing to believe. But when I started eating all this meat and all this stuff, I felt great. Other doctors are dropping like flies on me. I'm in no pain. My back's not hurting. I'm strong. I'm like, I'm good to go. And they're like, you're not hurting? I'm like, nope, no poop problems. I'm fine. I feel great, you know? And it was like 10 years later or something when I finally, I'm like, oh, that's why I always felt good.
Wow.
But see, that's how much we trick ourselves. That's how
Yeah.
many games. So I get the irrational, ridiculous, sad, disconnected to nature vegan logic. I lived it for so long, where you create some delusional thinking as if what you're doing isn't causing environmental damage, isn't causing lives to be, hurt. But I was deep in it. And now I've hit the point where I'm like, to really honor, like the lion to the gazelle, right? What you've done to me, like ancient spirit medicine. Now I see how I transmit it. Like that life didn't die with no purpose. I need it to live. Right. And just like
Yes.
everything, everything lives and dies. Like the grass has its place, that,
Circle of
yeah,
life.
right. And when I die and when the lion dies, we're going to go into the earth and make mineral rich soil again, that the plants will do. And it's all supposed to be, but we become so disconnected to the idea of death. We're so sanitized. We can't handle birth, dirtiness, death, dirtiness, the idea of how, and I reference people back when they're vegetarians come in and I'm trying to like convert them. Like, okay, everybody knows like about the Aboriginal tribes and Native American tribes, and people, are using medicine cards now, and people go to sweat lodges now, right? It's all very popular. I'm like, so do you think we're using quotes of them? You're using their prayers. You're going to the Indian, Native American shaman. Do you think he's disconnected from spirit? You think they know more than the Lakota know more than you, right? Well, yeah. Like they thought everything was God. Everything had a spirit to it. Mother, earth, father, sky, everything was blessed. Everything was a connected space. They go, yeah. So are they murderers because they were eating the bison? Because that was the primary. I mean, I'm confused. You can't really have it both ways. Like they're the most spiritual, yet we're going to ignore the foundation of the way they were that way. Right. So,
which is huge.
Yeah.
What they ate was huge.
Yeah, it is. There's no primal culture, no indigenous culture that's a vegetarian on earth. Never has been, never will be. That right there made me go, oh, right. And then oh, that's interesting how that vegan pamphlet seemed to miss that part in telling me that, right?
Well, let me ask you this, and might be a little controversial or whatever, but because our society, let's face it, we are pretty much plant-based, right? That bottom part of that pyramid, that's what's pushed. We eat so many servings of grain. Okay, I don't say we because we don't, but the general population, yeah, right?
In the world, really the majority of the globe is grain and seed oils.
Yes. So the question is, do you think that plays into some of the craziness we're seeing these days with the emotional outbursts and the online is just crazy? I mean,
emotional reactivity and mental
reactive. Yes. Yeah.
So you have parts of your brain, right? So absolutely, a sugar-based brain that's lacking saturated fats and cholesterols, which is its primary substrate, is an emotionally reactive and unstable brain. So the parts of the brain that deal with, which is again, that cortex, is not just logic, reason, and good future planning and function. It also holds compassion and empathy. Right? The ability to activate those mirror neurons then and put it up, which means you could feel what another person is feeling just by, it's like, if you watch the guy get kicked in the balls and everybody goes, oh, because you like feel it, or you watch somebody do something like a broken limb and it's the wrong way and you feel that's a mirror neuron reaction. We're able to, like sociopaths don't have that. Like that's why like a serial murderer can do what they do. They don't have a normal mirror neuron function.
Mm.
They don't feel like that. They don't feel that. That's already a dangerous situation. So anything to damage your mirror is not a good plan. So that being said, then it goes up there and allows you to have this empathy and compassion that go in, so you can connect with other people and make good decisions with that other executive CEO of your brain. They're tied in, like, so you're supposed to be like this, right? Well, that part of the brain, this higher executive function, it really likes to go to work on ketones. So a brain on ketones, on fat, not all jacked up by super high glucose and stuff like that, high insulin, it's a calmer, more stable brain that is more rational and can make better decisions. And it has more compassion and more empathy. The inside emotional brain, that's just the reptilian part, this lower base animal that doesn't make, that isn't real smart, doesn't make good decisions. It just knows like reflexive ways to stay alive or fight. It's the war part of the brain. It is a me against you. It's the war brain. This is the compassion brain, right? Sugar feeds this and activates it. So if you keep feeding nothing but this and you always starve this, eventually this will just always takes over. So yeah, what people eat absolutely does that. And a brain that feels like it's starving all the time, and a brain that doesn't get enough animal fat and animal protein feels like it's starving all the time. That brain thinks it's in a famine. That's in a life or death state all the time. So it overreacts, it overresponds because it's on high alert. So part of I teach one course, it's called the 3R for women, 3R for rest, restore, renew. The first word is rest. And it's a carnivore based 90-day group. And why is that? Because that's the restore. I go with an elimination diet, being that it's carnivore. And because part of the rest, I'm feeding that brain so much, sometimes for the first time, women suddenly don't feel anxious and depressed. Cortisol naturally can go down. They can finally just naturally sleep because the brain says, oh God, thank you so much. I've been starving. It's been life or death for 10 years. I mean, you've been feeding me 1,200 calories of rice. Like, I'm starving. That's what that brain feels like. And so it's very trigger happy. It just can't stay stable. Absolutely. A brain that's on a high carb, low animal fat diet, and once you add the seed oils to fill that in, absolutely anxious, depressed, reactive, angry. It's horrible. Every vegan that comes to see me, you know what every single one that has been into my practice, you want to know what they come for? Anxiety, panic, depression, suicidal ideation.
Wow.
Not a single one comes to me for anything other than this. Always the same.
So what is your success rate of getting them to add in some animal protein?
Well, gosh, that really varies. I will tell you, about 2-3 years ago, I made a decision. I will not accept a vegan for neurofeedback unless they're going to change their diet, because I just felt guilty at that point. Like, I'm ripping you off. Like, I can't change the structure and function of your brain. It's like, how can I build a house without the steel, the wood, the cement,
nails,
and you're not eating the stuff? Oh, or you have to have $800 a month of supplements. Like, it's just insane. So I just saw the neurofeedback not really work. It's going to take 3 times as many sessions. So somebody, I would say your care plan is going to be 40 sessions. This is how long it's going to take. With them, I'm like, I'm going to let you know right now, it's going to take 80 to 120. If I'm lucky. Like, but how can I can't keep exercising a brain to do something and there's no omega-3s in it. There's no saturated fat. Your cholesterol's at 110. There's nothing there to make anything. You know what I mean? Like, and after they were my worst outcomes unless I could make it happen. So I just started saying, I'm not doing it. Now I will do consults for them. I'll read some labs. I'll try to encourage. And if I've got to just I'm like, you're going to have to take an essential amino acid supplement a lot. They're all under proteins. They all need, methylated B vitamins. They all need iron. I mean, they all have digestive problems. So I feel kind of bad after a while, like I'm recommending 5 times as many supplements to just patch up all the holes and damage, and either deficiency or damage that all of that is causing. And it just doesn't feel good to me. It's not rewarding. So in general, I don't want to do that anymore. Just like I don't get patients that I am trying to convince not to take Tylenol for a headache. They already know. That's why they're there with me. I don't waste my time. You know what I mean? Yeah. When your patient population for so long was basically half the practice is autism. Well, you want to talk about an educated warrior, you get a holistic autism mom. That lady has a PhD in everything around this. I guarantee you, she knows more than 90% of pediatricians about what's going on and what to do. So they don't play. They come in. We've been on the GAPS diet for 4 years. They got all their homeopathics. They've seen, they don't play. They know what's up, right? It's very rare I have to talk one of those into, oh, okay, you don't know about gluten and soy and casein yet. No problem. You're going to buy a crock pot and we're going to start changing things. But by the time they're there, they're going to do whatever I say, right? But in general, I'm very blessed to have them. Like my market is more who I want is a highly educated, kind of already playing with it. They've been paleo a while, but now their results are not starting to tweak. They've been keto, but it's up or down. And, like they already live in that space. And it was a tough decision to make a few years ago. So the parents would be like, so here's the thing, she's been vegan for a year. She doesn't see that the depression is related, like, because she wasn't suicidal before. Now she is. So they use me to try and work that magic. And in general, I'm pretty successful because of my 14-year history as a vegetarian, 12 as a vegan. They're kind of like, okay. And once I admit how bad I felt, which all vegans lie, I did it. We all lie about it. We're all lying about how we actually feel. Because once we all cross into the dark side of eating meat again, we all sit around and go, don't you just feel so much better? It's like a dirty secret. And I don't want it to be a dirty secret anymore, because this scam that is pushing it on everybody so hard right now, I feel like it's at this point, it's a concerted conspiracy to weaken the human system,
I was going to go there.
Destroy your brain, to destroy the brains of our youth, to riddle them with anxiety, depression, and cognitive impairment, to riddle them with learning disorders, put them on more drugs, to make them have no muscle. The fact that I could out push up almost every 15-year-old boy that came into my office, I was like, do y'all not do anything in gym anymore? I don't understand. I mean, boys used to want to be jacked. Now it's like everybody wants to look like an emaciated meth head. You know what I mean?
Yes, so I do.
The destruction of, the feminization of boys. I'm the mother of a boy, and I have been watching it happen. And I'm like a big feminist, again, big old liberal Democrat progressive for a long time. And I'm the gay, I'm a lesbian. So you would think, so I'm been playing in this field a long time. Becoming a mother of a boy and watching what is the destruction of like what it means to be a masculine, to be a boy, to be a man. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually he's going to be a man. So let's talk about this, and let me make sure he's a mentally stable, strong brain, strong mind, and strong body, so he can responsibly react to all the situations around him. If my son can't run into my house, throw me over his back and carry me out, I'm not tolerating that. I've told him, your job, my job now, I told him, my job is to protect you now, because I'm bigger and stronger than you. One day, those tables will turn. You are going to be a bigger, stronger man than people who are smaller, weaker than you. That will be me one day. You better be strong enough and capable enough to defend and protect those people who cannot defend and protect themselves. That's your social responsibility as far as I'm concerned. That's the kind of man I'm raising you to be. You better get on it. That's why you exercise. That's why you eat well. That's why you get strong.
I got goosies. I love that.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
I'm over this acting like we're the same. We're not. He's going to have 30% more muscle mass than me. He's going to have testosterone jacked. That's the reality, right? His pelvic size is not the same. He's going to run stronger, faster than me. He's going to be stronger than me. He's going to be able to throw a spear or a knife stronger than me. Luckily, my kid is super into survival stuff. And he said to me a few years ago, Mom, I know you think it's crazy. He's got weak survival bags. I said, I don't think it's crazy at all, Punk. And I think Spirit brought you to me for a reason. I'm listening. I need to get food for the house, right? Or whatever. He goes, yeah. He goes, I just want to be the kind of man that can have one survival bag on my back, go into the woods for a year and survive. And I was like, wow. Okay.
That's my son. That's my son.
I'm like, that's like a country. And here's the thing. He's got like 2 city Yankee parents. We don't know anything about any of this stuff. I got nothing. I'm like, Pumpkin, we don't like the NRA. That's not what we do. That's not my people. Now I'm at gun ranges, he goes to knife throwing classes. I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And so I found like this guy who does this Native American, he's done all this primal Native American. He can make backpacks out of leather. He can sew, he can make moccasins, he can throw a knife. So our next phase will be hunting. And he said, and he was really nervous, asked me, he's like, I feel like I know how you're going to say. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, I want to learn to hunt. And he was expecting me to be like, no, you can't. And I was like, I understand. I said, I actually really respect it, Bennett. I said, I'll make that happen. I said, I need you to be able to listen really well. You've got to be so compliant. He's got some argumentative issues. I said, you cannot be with someone with either a bow and arrow or a gun and not be super careful, super obedient. You know what I mean? And we weren't a family like my country friends where they're like, at 5, they got a gun and they're out hunting. You know what I mean? I'm like, your dad and I don't know anything about it. We're going to have to hire people to help. So I've been learning what my son is into to get better at it, to help him and honor what he is divinely drawn to do. He's a primal country boy that is bringing me back to the principles of nature. And I'm like, okay, you were a gift to me for a reason. And I no longer look at those things as weapons that way. It's a tool. That's how we look. And so I bought him this first knife and it was engraved. And it was like 2 years ago for Christmas. My mom kind of like, I said, Mommy, it's not a weapon. It's a tool. And there's a lot to be said. It was actually a Dave Asprey podcast I listened to about him carrying a straight knife and a pocket knife and what it made him feel like as a man. And it made so much sense to me because men are so disconnected from their primal way of what they were there to do. Like you're supposed to can I swear?
Sure.
Like they're supposed to carry heavy shit and kill stuff. And I'm supposed to be like running the village like a boss. And so I don't say that to be insulting. I joke, my ex-husband always carries our bags when we do stuff, we travel, and people say, oh, isn't that nice? I'm like, no, it's his job. It's like, he's a man. He's supposed to be carrying all my shit.
I'm with you, girl. I'm with you.
He's stronger than me. I'm taking care of the baby. I mean, he can't do what I'm doing.
Cook, yeah.
I'm the boss. I'm making milk. I don't know what else I'm making milk and taking a nap. Y'all can carry things and chop wood. That's your job. So I say that in jest as an extreme. Of course, I can do any of that too. I can shoot guns at the range and I can go do whatever I want. But to act like you know what I mean? So I'm looking at that whole thing. So yeah, the whole, let's become a vegetarian, let's become a vegan. You're raising boys' estrogen, lowering their testosterone. You're making them completely confused, like hormonally as to what they're designed to be. They have no muscle mass. They have no strength. None of them can sleep. They all have anxiety disorders. They're all depressed because their brains are starving and they're not getting normal, hormonal signals. We're also making everybody so obese that by the time you're 7, you're having leptin levels so high from the fat that the brain thinks, oh, it's time for puberty. And we're having people at 7 and 8 years old go into full blown puberty, which shouldn't have happened until they were 13 or 14 because they're so obese, because we've made them so overwhelming because we just, Coca-Cola and brownies. I mean, nowadays people give their kids Starbucks for breakfast. And I'm like, when the hell did that become a okay thing? I mean, it really was like,
I know.
When did that become okay? I'm super confused because these people were raised the same era as me. And my mother, we all know that that's actually not breakfast, right? A brownie and a coffee.
Yeah, no, people don't. I really completely believe that. Oh
Yeah.
wow, we ooh, woo, woo, our time. Wow, well,
Yeah,
we've
I don't
been
even know.
just a
I'm sorry.
yabbing. It's all good. I just okay. One more thing before we
Yeah.
go. You mentioned hunting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Okay, I come from a long line of the exact kind of men you're talking about. They're hunters, and I mean, guns, you name it. I've
Yeah.
seen deer skin. I've been around it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never
have
did it.
Yeah.
I never did that.
Okay.
I'm a huge animal lover.
Yep.
Okay, believe it or not, but I'm a carnivore too.
I got you. No.
But I'm an animal lover, and that hurts me. But I'm also kind of like you. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, how can I be okay saying I'm a carnivore, eating meat, but yet look at hunting as something that I can't do?
Yeah.
I mean, there is. I mean, there are people who like to and who don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of might be a good thing for me to maybe experience.
Yeah. I know it is for me.
So how about we make a bargain that we will try to do that? What do you say?
I actually, yes, here's the thing. I'm
Okay.
to the point, I actually want to lead a group retreat for women, like a first timer hunter retreat. I
Ooh, I
think
like
that would be
that.
super cool. I have
Yeah.
some female hunters, that would be willing to like be with us and teach us. And, maybe it would be a
Nice.
5-day retreat where we're kind of going over some basics, and who knows who might actually get the kill. But the more I study it and talk about it, when I talk with hunters and women in particular, because I really am interested in like that, because that social construct is different, than it's not as accepted, and they take a lot of hate on social media. When I've seen a few of them, I actually reached out to Maria,
Emmerich.
Yeah, I put
Uh-huh.
her name out, and
Yeah.
and I said,
Yes,
I would
we talk
interview.
hunting.
Yeah, I said I want to interview. I just want to actually do a
Yes.
perspective on women hunters. Maybe we should do like a group thing. That could be a cool thing. You get
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
because
yeah.
when they talk, their spiritual connection to nature is insane.
Yes.
That's what really blew my mind. I was like, they don't talk about, they're like, and they like make fun of us a little bit, like, yeah, all you guys, and you going hiking and your Lululemon to get connected to nature. That's not nature. That's ridiculous. When I go out and I'm hunting and they go, we rarely get anything. It's more of, if God finds it so to gift me with a deer that crosses my path, and you have to use skill and tracking. And most of the women I know, none of them are tree hunters. They don't use tree. They don't use, like, oh no, it's old school primal ways of doing it. And if I have the skill to get it and God wants to give it to me, then I've been blessed. They go, but in general, it's like, it's about being quiet. It's about being still. It's about observing and listening. And they go, you're not nature hiking with a bunch of people with your headphones on listening to Drake. I'm connected to nature when I'm so still. I've blended in so deeply that a bird lands on me because it thinks I'm a tree. I was like, that happens? And like, yeah, that's why we do it. I was like, oh, wow. So, and there is that, I've heard many talk about, obviously, that, and the hope that women all say too, they go, and my daddy raised me, let me go, because they're all country. And if you kill it, you're doing all the cleaning. You don't, you don't do one part.
I forgot about that part.
Right. So my son, we were telling him, and it was like, I'm looking forward to it, but let me be real. He's like, no, I know. I want to know it. It's like, I want to know the skill of how to prepare it, because that's the only way you're going to survive. And so what's hitting me now, Amber, is how little skills I have. I'm like, I don't know how to make yarn. I don't know how to make shoes. I don't know how to sew. I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to can. I'm like, I don't actually know how to do a whole bunch of anything except be on the internet and make videos and read labs. That's not really going to help us in a crisis situation.
No.
You know what I mean? So I'm increasing my skill set to be of usefulness.
That's smart, and I should do the same. So
yeah,
okay. Well, let's do it. Let's make.
We should talk about it, because I think
let's do
the thing, and trying to coordinate it myself has been a little bit overwhelming. But I've had that idea about a year ago, and we can really bring I would be bringing spirituality into it. I think that's what women crave, is understanding. This is it's an act of communion with nature. You know, it's not about killing. It's about receiving a gift, really.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we are really long on time here, but it was super fun. Thank you.
Just cut me out.
No, I'm not cut. It's all good. I can't cut anything out, so it's just gonna have to be long. But thank you so much for coming on, Stephanie. I appreciate it very much. And y'all go follow Dr. Rimka. I'll put all her stuff below. And while you're here, subscribe to my channel. Do it right now. So anyway, well, thanks again, Stephanie. It's been a lot of fun. Bye.
Bye.